Adequate notice of this. Would you call the roll, please?
Anthony Caldwell. Here. Laura Grauman. Donald Johnson. Bruce McCracken.
Here.
Alan Rich was.
Here.
Robert Shepherd asked to be excused. Gary Rosenthal.
Here.
Cheryl Betha. Beef.
Here.
Cheryl Beef.
Right here.
No, this is Cheryl.
Two Cheryls.
There's two Cheryls now. Bill Reese.
Yeah.
Cheryl Bagallo. Here. And Chairman Thomas.
Here. Regular meeting minutes, October 18th, 2018. Have a motion.
Moved it.
Second.
Anthony Caldwell.
Yes.
Laura Grauman. Yes. Donald Johnson.
Yes.
Bruce McCracken.
Yes.
Alan Rich.
Yes.
Gary Rosenthal.
Yes.
Joel Reese.
Yes.
Cheryl Bagallo. And Chairman Thomas.
Yes. Regular meeting, November 1st, 2018.
Second.
Second.
Anthony Caldwell.
Yes.
Donald Johnson.
Yes.
Bruce McCracken.
Yes.
Alan Rich.
Yes.
Gary Rosenthal.
Yes.
Joel Reese.
Yes.
And Chairman Thomas.
Yes. Okay, we'll pause in the agenda to swear in a new member.
Of the state of New Jersey.
Okay, welcome to the board. Then that gives you a chance now to vote on the calendar when you need to be here next year. So first resolution is the 2019 calendar.
Move it.
Second.
Anthony Caldwell.
Yes.
Laura Grauman. Donald Johnson.
Yes.
Bruce McCracken.
Yes.
Alan Rich.
Yes.
Gary Rosenthal.
Yes. Yes.
Cheryl Bethia.
Yes.
Joel Reese.
Yes.
Cheryl Bagallo. And Chairman Thomas.
Yes. Resolutions. Extension of time to Batchnik, ZBA 15-00018. We have a motion?
Those are just to be provided. We don't have them yet.
Okay. So we can go through, skip the whole
Yes, sir.
agenda. Payment of invoices, is there? Okay,
yeah.
we're doing this under the new procedure?
Yeah, well, I want to bring something to the board's attention and a suggestion to the board. It was brought to my attention at a department head meeting that the state apparently has changed. The state apparently has changed. This isn't. Is this loud enough? I think you just. Okay. The state changed the law whereby if the township does not pay a vendor within 2 months of receiving a bill, that we have to pay interest on that bill or on that invoice. And that causes some problems on the part of the township. For example, if we receive an invoice from a consulting engineer, from our attorney, et cetera, and you don't meet, we get it in May, and you don't meet for July and August, now all of a sudden we're going to have to pay interest on that. And I can tell you, the interest is one thing, the administrative headache is a headache I don't want to bear. So what I'm suggesting is that for bills that we receive, first of all, most of the bills that you receive are, or actually most of the invoices that we receive are paid from developers' escrows. So actually most of them you don't really see. You know, applicant comes in, they pay an escrow, and that money is paid from the escrow. But for smaller homeowner applications like the ones before you tonight, and then other matters that aren't covered by escrow, we pay for that out of our budget. Our practice is to put it on the agenda, you approve it, then we pay it. For those type of bills, what I'm suggesting is that when I get those bills, so for example, Mr. Kinley's time for tonight in the resolutions, when he submits those invoices, that I give those to the chairman, and then I would be authorized to pay it once the chairman okays it. And then we will put it on the agenda, on a subsequent agenda, so you always are aware of the bills that are paid. So that's the suggestion to you. If you're in agreement with that, we believe we might have to make a tweak to the bylaws, and we can do that at the reorganization meeting. So I'm bringing that to your attention. That's my recommendation. Let's see if you have any comments or concerns about that.
I think it makes sense, talking about a whole lot of.
No, we're not.
That's fine.
Okay, all right, so we can discuss that at reorg. We'll see if we have to make any tweaks to the bylaws to bring that into effect.
Definitely trust the chairman.
Yes, I do, I think it'd be good to have just that one check. You know, I think I can be trusted with some of these minor bills, but it's always good to send it to the chairman, have the chairman know about these bills, sign off on it, and then again, we can proceed. All right?
Well, it's still good for you because as far as the general public knows, I mean, it's going to come, whatever you approve or pay is going to come publicly before a board. And that helps, that part will help you too.
Well, they're also, yeah, well, before they get paid, they actually also go on the Township Council bill list. So it's going to be, again, approved by the chairman. It'll be put on your agenda as an FYI, and before the check is actually checked, it's still going to go on the Township Council bill list.
If we have to tweak any bylaws or anything, is this on track to be started in January, or is it?
Yes.
able- We don't have to do anything in between now and then?
No.
Okay. Any other comments about it? Okay, then we'll move to hearings. Reverend Ursula Cardinal, ZBA 16-00025, certification of a pre-existing non-conforming use. This was supposed to be heard tonight. It's carried to January 3rd, and no further notifications are needed. Kathleen Kelly, ZBA 18-00015, C variance for front yard setback in which the applicant seeks to construct a covered porch in the front of the house, 65 Wilson Road, Somerset, Block 422, Lot 5, in the R20 zone. That will be first.
Mr. Chairman, why don't I provide, looks like they have an exhibit, but why don't I provide a brief overview. What the applicant is proposing to place a small covered porch on the front of her house. The reason for the variance is that the house is very slightly non-conforming. The required front yard setback is 25 feet. The existing house is 24.7. So basically, anything placed in front of the house is going to trigger a variance. It's a roofed porch. The roofed porch, I think, will be presented to you in a minute, projects 2 feet forward from the existing front of the house. So the request is for variance of 22.7 feet where 25 is required.
Okay, who are we speaking with? You got to use the mic.
Okay. Kathleen Kelly, 65 Wilson Road.
I need to swear you in. Could you raise your right hand?
Yes,
Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give should be the truth?
it is.
Thank you.
Okay, so as was described, this is the front porch. So originally, when I had worked with my contractor, this was exclusively going to be for a living room renovation. And when I had met Susan and we were going through the drawings and what the requirements were going to be for the living room, we went outside of the house to look at the house, and so she could get an idea of the heights and things like that. And then she just happened to mention, have you ever thought about putting a porch over this? And I was excited. I was like, I have been thinking about this since I bought the house. So, I mean, it had been probably a good 12 to 14 years. And all I'd been dreaming about, but I could never figure out how to do it. So then when Susan had come up with the drawings, I thought that this was the most amazing thing. My neighbors are all in support as well. It really does make a lot more sense because of where the front door is. There's no covering over that at all. So it's just this inset where this patio, this cement patio is. And then you walk up the step and then you make a right into where the front door is. So this does make a lot more sense for the look of the house. And it kind of ties together three roofs that look disjointed, for lack of a better term. Any other information that you need?
Anybody have a question?
I noticed the survey is as of 2004. Have there been any changes to the property since that time?
Changes to the property? No, other than losing trees due to hurricanes and putting in new trees because of the hurricanes. And then, as I described, that the living room that is offset from the rest of the house, that project was approved by the township, is currently ongoing. But there is no change to the footprint on the house at all.
The living room project was internal to the house, right?
Correct. Well, I mean, it's, as I said, there was no
Within the-
change to the footprint.
Yes, within the walls of the.
Correct.
I think it's also obvious this is the only location that you could put the porch, and how it appears to be pretty minimally sized. It's not huge or anything like that, so.
Oh, no, definitely. I'm just covering the existing porch, having a roof that goes over that, and then the 3 support beams to hold up the roof.
There really are no alternative
There is not.
arrangements, okay? Any other information?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think I could offer too. I think the exhibit basically shows it. I think the top is the existing and the bottom is the proposed. It looks, I mean, in my opinion, I think the comment that it improves the appearance of the house, ties the roof lines together. I think it's an aesthetic improvement.
Was that exhibit submitted as part of the application package, or does
Yes,
it need to be
that's-
marked separately?
That's
Yeah.
part of it.
Okay, if no one needs any further information, we'll open to the public. Is there anyone who'd like to make a comment or ask a question? Okay, we'll close. Can we get a motion?
I move to approve the application.
Second.
And I think for the record, I think we could probably identify as both a C1 and a C2 variance. There is a hardship because, as the chairman said, nowhere else to go, and the aesthetic improvements that we talked about would be the C2.
Anthony Caldwell,
Yes.
Laura Grauman,
Yes.
Donald Johnson,
Yes.
Bruce McCracken,
Yes.
Alan Rich,
Yes.
Gary Rosenthal,
Yes.
Robert Thomas.
Yes, good luck with it.
Thank you very much.
Nice and easy, huh?
Thank you. Y'all made my night.
Okay, the next item on the agenda, Marcus Sermon, ZBA 18-00016, C variance for side yard setback for existing garage at 37 Millstone Road, Block 142, lots 1, 2, and 11 in the R7 zone. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Adjustment, members of the public. My name is Francis P. Linus. My offices are at 21 Clyde Road in Somerset, New Jersey. I'm pleased to represent Mr. Sermons this evening. Yes, indeed, we're looking for a side yard setback variance for an existing masonry garage on the property. The applicant is here to correct a number of nonconformities that was recently brought to his attention. If you look at the plan, you'll see that it currently consists of the single-family dwelling, and that's been there since 1950, and that's what the testimony will reveal. There's a second residential dwelling that burnt down in February, I think, of this year, and since that time, that triggered an investigation of the property. They found that there was too much impervious coverage. They found that the second dwelling shouldn't have been there. So we're here tonight to preserve the existing house that was built in 1950 and to preserve the masonry garage, which needs a 3.5-foot setback variance. The zone requires 8 feet. So the applicant will be demolishing the existing small shed as well as the existing one-story frame dwelling. The applicant will also be removing impervious coverage so as to reduce the existing impervious coverage from 46% to 30%, which is allowed by your ordinance. There's an existing 1.5-story frame dwelling unit. That's the one that I told you was built in 1950, according to the tax assessor's records, and that dwelling will remain on the property.
That dwelling, that structure.
Structure, yes, it's a dwelling. At the end of the day, the 1950 dwelling will remain on the property.
Okay, as opposed to the garage.
No, the garage is good. At the end of the day, the garage will be there, a residential garage, and the existing 1.5-story dwelling. There's a one-story dwelling that burnt down, but still is there.
Okay.
That's going along with the extra impervious coverage, so that'll be gone. And we have exhibits to show what it'll look like after the,
Let me
Yeah.
just interrupt.
Yeah.
One more time. When you say residential garage, you're talking about a garage that's used
it's a
for
man cave.
residential.
Yeah, residential purpose. It's a man cave. You'll hear Mr. Sermon say it's
Got
a
it,
man cave.
okay.
Yeah, okay. All right. The applicant's parents are deceased. They died in the last parent died in June of 2015, and Marcus owns the property free and clear. It is free and clear, right? Good, all right, okay. Okay. There's pre-existing non-conforming conditions relating to the lot. The lot's in the R7 zone. It's a corner lot. It requires 9,000 square feet. It consists of 8,668 square feet. There's a front yard setback for the pre-existing single-family dwelling, the one that was built in 1950, and that varies between 23.1 feet and 24.8 feet at the Millstone Road frontage and 1.6 feet, 1.5 feet at the Stadthoff Avenue frontage. Again, there's a variance requested for the side yard setback of the existing garage. Both side yards have a setback of 3.5 where 8 feet are required. You'll hear testimony from Mr. Holmes, who's our planner, as to justification for that variance. And that's it. I have two witnesses. Mr. Sermons is the owner of the property, and Mr. Ray Holmes, he's our licensed planner and licensed surveyor. So without further ado, I'd like Mr. Sermons sworn in.
Mr. Sermons, could you take the microphone in your left hand and raise your right hand? You swear the testimony you're about to give should be the truth?
Yes.
Your name and address, please.
It's Marcus Sermons, 37 Millstone Road, Somerset, New Jersey, 08873.
All right, Mr. Sermons, how long has the property been in the name of your family?
54 years.
Okay, since about 1964, right?
Yes.
Is that correct? And how old are
You
you?
want to speak into the mic.
Okay, sorry. I'm
No, it's
54.
important for taping.
54.
Okay, you're 54 years old.
Yes.
Okay, and have you lived on the property substantially most of your life?
Yes.
All right, and how long have you currently lived in the property?
12 years.
Okay. Your parents purchased the property in 1964, correct?
Yes.
Okay, now let's go way back. What's your first memory of what existed on the property? How old were you?
I'll say maybe 12 years old.
Okay. I'm going to show you, you asked me to check the tax assessor's records to see when the original house was built. That's the 1.5 family dwelling, correct?
Yes.
I'm going to show you what I've marked as A1, and it indicates that that house was built in 1950. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and it certainly was there when you were born. Is that
Yes.
correct? Hand this into the chair. Now, what about the other structure, the one that burnt down, the one-story dwelling? When did that burn down?
February of this year, the 20th, I believe.
Okay, and that's what triggered, after the fire people came, that's what triggered an investigation of the property. They said, how'd that second dwelling get there? And they looked at the impervious coverage, and you were over on impervious coverage, right?
Yes.
And they saw that garage out there, that 20.1 foot by 18 foot garage out there, and saw the setback.
Yes.
Correct? And since that time, you've been working to clean up the property, and you're here tonight for the one variance, okay, which is the continuation of the masonry garage with a 3.5 foot side yard setback. Is that correct?
Yes, I have been working on it.
Okay. So at the end of the day, should this board approve this plan, what goes down is the second single-family dwelling, all the impervious coverage to reduce it to 30%, correct?
Yes.
And the shed, there's a shed on the property, that's coming down too.
Yes.
Okay, I have no further questions.
Excuse me, do you know, it doesn't affect anything, but I'm just curious. Did your parents put up that second residential dwelling? Was it there forever?
I think my dad added on to it, yes.
And who used it? He rented it out?
No. He did a little else. Oh,
About the house that
Yeah, the house
Yeah,
that burned down.
his children always lived there. Always relative lived in there. Sisters.
Any other questions?
The garage, the man cave, does that have a restroom in it, bathroom?
Has a toilet in it,
Toilet.
yes.
Okay, how about a kitchen?
No kitchen, no.
No kitchen?
No gas.
Electricity, though?
Toilet, sink.
Okay. All right.
Taxes up to date?
You
I
pay,
owe a balance of 700.
you're going to pay that, right?
Oh, yes.
Mr. Chairman, two questions. Have you had a chance to review the report from the TRC, the Technical Review Committee?
Yes, and we'll comply with all the review comments.
Okay, I just have two questions. Comments 2, 3, and 4. Comment 2 talks about the removal of the structures and the walkways and driveways to make the site otherwise compliant, obtaining permits for the garage, and comment 4 is to consolidate the lots. Is there if the board was inclined to approve the application, is there a reasonable time frame by which you can commit to doing all of those?
Yes, I'm ready to get started now. I'm just waiting on,
As a matter of fact, haven't you already taken
Yes.
steps? Public service, tell the board what you've done so far.
Okay, I notified public service. They disconnected everything. I'm just waiting for a letter. And I also have an exterminator coming out tomorrow.
And you've taken out an application for a
Yes, I
demolition
did.
permit. You haven't filed it yet,
No.
but you're about to do that. Now, what about the extra impervious coverage? When's that going down?
Right away, I start right away.
Okay. And how long do you figure it'll take you?
Say 2 weeks.
Oh, all right.
So if you
Optimi- that's kinda
got this
optimistic.
done by the end of the spring,
Yeah, that,
assuming it might snow or,
I had a
Yeah,
period of 3 months, weather permitting, because it was just removing driveway, removing walkways, removing a building, you have to get the permits, so.
why don't we say 3 to 6 months, weather permitting? I think that gives them
I-
an opportunity to do that.
Sounds fine to me, if that's fine with the board. And then the other thing, just to understand that if the board approves it, TRC is recommending that after the fact, that there be an as-built provided to the township documenting that it's been removed.
And we agree with that.
Okay, thank you.
Also, I think there should be a condition on the garage, since it does have some facilities, and it should not be a rental property. Should be used for the benefit of the residents who are in the house, whether it's storage or man cave or whatever,
car.
but it's not a part of a 1.5 family rental unit or whatever.
All right, you understand that, Mr. Sermons, that nobody's going to live there? Okay.
Any other questions?
I have a question. So there was no plumbing permit for the garage pulled?
I don't know.
Okay. How old is the garage?
Can you use the microphone, please?
I'll say the garage is at least 40 years old.
Okay.
and the bathroom's been there the whole time?
I'm wondering
Yes.
what it's tied into. The toilet. I don't know. I would like.
He's going to have to get a permit, Ms. Brigalo.
Right. I would like to see the construction permits before 6 months. You know, the asphalt is one thing, but getting the proper building permits, I think, is more of a priority. So if that can be,
Well, here's the process. This would be, if the board chooses to approve it, the zoning approval, the zoning permit, if you will. And then Mr. Sermons will have the opportunity and the obligation, because, as I understand it, it will be a condition of approval that we agreed to, that he will apply for an after-the-fact construction permit. So I would expect that when he applies for that the inspectors will come down and make sure that the garage that's been there for 30, 40 years or however long will indeed qualify for a permit. And if there's any plumbing or any ancillary permits, electric, whatever, they'll have to be reviewed and taken upon. I think the board is protected with a condition that the application is approved subject to, the garage remains there subject to a construction permit, an after-the-fact construction permit.
Was the garage built the same time as the house? Because
I don't know.
It's close. I think zoning and...
Online, the house was built in
Yeah,
1950, yeah.
Yeah, I think zoning goes back, I'll be corrected by Mr. Healy, about 1958, Mark? Okay. So we know the main house was built in 1950.
Right.
Mr. Sermons is 54, so he can only go back 40 years, 45 years, so it's been a long time.
Okay, any other questions?
I have a question. The garage area, is it heated?
No.
Okay, next.
Okay, public or after?
Well, I think with the limited public, we'll do it once. at the end.
Okay, Raymond Holmes, want to be sworn in, Ray?
Could you raise your right hand? You swear the testimony you're about to give should be the truth, so help you God.
Yes,
Your name and address, please?
Raymond Holmes, 7 Stratford Place, New Brunswick, New Jersey.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Holmes, will you give the board and members of the public who are here the benefit of your background, qualifications, and experience?
I've been a licensed land surveyor and licensed planner for 37 years. I've worked in both private and public sectors. I recently retired from the city of East Orange as their municipal surveyor and
We
advisor.
accept him for his expertise.
Okay. And you prepared the variance plan before the board, is that correct?
Yes,
Okay. And you're familiar in your capacity as a licensed planner with the Franklin Township Land Development Ordinance as well as the Municipal Land Use Law, are you not?
yes, sir.
Okay. Now, I just ask you to bring one exhibit with you, and it's a two-faced exhibit. You want to approach the
Yes.
board there? I've marked as Exhibit A1. No, exactly. Exhibit A2, existing conditions. You want to describe that for the board so that they know what we're talking about?
Okay, we have 3 structures. The main house, which is a story and a half.
And that's the house that was built in 1950 according to the tax records.
Right, that's, you know, all right. We have a second structure. This is the one that it's 1 story, and it's
That's the one that burnt down in February.
Right. We have a third structure, and that's the masonry garage at the very end of the property. And we have 1 small shed pointing to it now.
And
We have a series
that's a
of...
tool shed, and that'll be going bye-bye, right?
Yes, sir.
All right.
We have a series of walkways. All of them are nice and neat, no cracks, just so you can get around the property without having to step in mud. We have a patio, and the property is very neat. It's a very neat piece of property. Kept everything tidy. Unfortunately, he has to remove some of these things in order to meet the impervious requirement,
All right, currently the impervious coverage is what?
46.
46%? And the zone allows a maximum of 30?
Yes, sir.
And we're reducing the impervious coverage from 46% to 30%, is
That's
that
correct.
correct? Okay. Now you want to flip the exhibit around? And we've pre-marked that as A3, I believe, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And what does that represent, Ray?
Okay, this is, once he cleans the property up, and I say clean, we're only doing this to meet the, to remove the building, to remove the walkways, to meet the zoning requirements and especially the impervious requirement. He has never received a complaint from any of his neighbors regarding his property. He's always kept it in good shape. And as you'll see, he's going to keep the patio and the part of the asphalt driveway, just enough to allow 4 cars to park in that space.
Okay. And Ray, other than the setback variance for the garage that we're going through, And other than continuation of the lot size, which is pre-existing, and the front yard setback for the pre-existing home, the only variance we're requesting tonight is the side yard setback of the garage. So let's focus on that. You want to give a justification for the location of the garage at that location?
Well, I would imagine they picked this spot because it was convenient. I really cannot, I think he should attest to that, as to why they have the garage there.
Well, he was a little boy. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know if he could testify to that.
I can attest that.
Well, it's at
The
this.
placement of this, may I?
Yeah, go ahead.
I can attest that where it's placed now, to the east of it is a driveway, a concrete driveway, and to the south of it is a garage. So that's what it's flanked by. And so aesthetically, it's not going to be a problem. Functionally, it's not a problem.
I would
What about
also
its
think,
relate-
Frank, let me just interrupt real quickly, just before I forget the thought. If you were to place it in the narrower portion of the lot and comply with the 8-foot setback, you wouldn't be able to get 4 cars into the driveway. At a minimum, you'd be able to get 2, and then you would have more parking on the street.
Exactly.
And the location of the garage does comply with the front yard and rear yard setback requirements of the zone, does it not?
Yes.
Okay. Now, in addition to the C1 analysis that you just made, are you familiar with special purposes of the municipal land use law?
Yes.
Okay, does this location of this garage and the entire application we're presenting to the board, does it provide any benefits or any special reasons under the law?
Well, I would rather say that it doesn't impact negatively on the neighborhood.
Right, well, that would be the negative criteria.
Right.
For example, NJSA 40:55D-2E states that it's a purpose of zoning to promote the establishment of appropriate population densities. Is it your opinion that by elimination of the second dwelling that we're promoting that purpose?
Oh, yes, we are.
So in essence, having one dwelling
As
and a
opposed to-
garage on one lot?
Yes.
Okay.
Though
All right.
this particular zoning allows for moderate and low density residential.
Well, it's an R7 zone.
Right.
And the reason, we're a corner lot, so we need 9,000 square feet, but we have 8,866 square feet
Yes.
or thereabouts. Okay. All right. Boom. Do you think if the board chooses to grant the variance, the setback variances, that the benefits outweigh any detriment?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And again, we have no problem complying with the TRC report, all the comments.
That's correct. Not a problem.
Questions?
Any board questions?
Now, you've been there, correct?
Yes, sir.
You've been inside the garage?
Not inside the garage,
Not
no.
inside the garage?
I've been on the property, but not inside the garage.
Okay.
Is this a one-family house?
Yes, the 1.5-story dwelling is a one-family house.
And was anyone living in the other house when it burnt down?
Yes.
Yes.
Any other questions? Right, we would open to the public if other members of the public would like to ask a question or make a statement. Okay, then we'll close. Anything you want to sum up?
Yes, if not, I will be brief, Mr. Chairman. It's clear that in February of this year, with the burning down of the second dwelling, that triggered an investigation. My client immediately took affirmative steps to correct what he could correct, and he's here before the board tonight to keep that garage in place where it is, the setback variances, so we have to look at whether he's entitled to get that variance. I think it is a C1 hardship variance because of its location and because of the information that Mr. Healy has given the board. In connection with the C2 variance, you can see we're cleaning up the property. We're satisfying a purpose of the municipal land use law. By elimination of the second dwelling, it's now in a population situation where you have one house on one lot at that location. By the way, in the R7 zone, under certain circumstances, if it were a 15,000 square foot lot, then you could have a two-family. But you can't, it's not a two-family, it's a single-family on a corner lot, and we would have the garage. So I think the evidence is there. The applicant is agreeable to all the conditions that would be imposed by the TRC, and the applicant is agreeable to the condition of obtaining a construction permit. He's moved expeditiously so far since February to get to where he is today, so I don't think there'll be any problems with Mr. Sermons moving expeditiously in the future so that everything is done properly. So that's the applicant's closing statement, and we would respectfully request your approval.
Okay, now with the new impervious coverage, he complies, but it's at the limit, right?
That is correct.
So your client understands there's no room for any new structures without another...
Unless he comes back before the board and requests a variance, in which case he'd have a full hearing, notice, et cetera, so on and so forth. But you do understand that?
Yes, I do.
I mean, once you clean it up and once it's down to 30%, no more structures, no more impervious, unless you come back to the board. You do understand that?
I understand.
Any other questions, or anybody want to offer a motion?
Yeah, I just have one quick question. You testified there wasn't any heat in the garage, but yet there's plumbing in the garage. How do you keep the pipes from freezing in the wintertime?
I plug in a heater.
The toilet?
When I'm sitting in there, I plug in a heater.
Oh, okay. Okay, gotcha.
Or I have my relative come in, winterize it.
Okay.
Is that plumbing tied to the city sewer system?
Yes.
So we've been paying sewer taxes.
Any other comments or questions about a motion?
I move the approval of this application subject that the construction permits work be completed weather permitting.
Second.
Okay, poll the board.
Anthony Caldwell,
Yes.
Laura Grauman, Donald Johnson,
Yes.
Bruce McCracken,
Yes.
Alan Rich,
Yes.
Gary Rosenthal,
Yes.
and Chairman Thomas.
Yes. Okay, good luck with it. All right, last hearing, Robin Saddam, ZBA, 18-0020, C variance for setbacks, lot, and impervious coverage to construct two porches on the existing home, 54 Skillman's Lane, Somerset, Block 65, Lot 61.02 in Zone A.
Mr. Chairman, why don't I provide a overview for the board first? This is somewhat similar to the first application that you saw, with one additional twist. The applicant is proposing porches on the east and west side of their existing home. On page 3 of the TRC report that's in your packet, you can see the location of each of the proposed porches. In total, they total 566 square feet. The appearance of the porches are shown in the architectural plans that were provided by the applicant and are in your packet. The twist, or the one way that this is similar to the prior application is that it's basically triggered by the fact that the entire house is non-conforming. It's an older house, it's on a smaller lot, and it's in the A agricultural zone, which requires 6 acres. This is a smaller lot, again, an older home placed closer to the street than the zoning today would dictate. So by placing the porches, they're triggering a bunch of variances. So that's why they're before you. The one additional thing that complicates this, or one additional thing further from the other application is the zoning was changed on this application. It was on this site. It was zoned cluster residential, I think as recently as 2007, which had smaller setbacks The property was zoned and the surrounding area was rezoned to the A zone, which have larger setbacks. So again, I think that zone change, I think they probably would have been before you anyway, just because again, the fact that the home is older and placed closer to the road. But I think the number of variances and the extent of the variances have been increased by virtue of that relatively recent zone change.
Okay.
I need to swear you in. Could you raise your right hand? Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give should be the truth?
Yes, I do.
Your name and address, please.
Robin Sadam, 29 Skillman's Lane.
You.
I thank you, Mr. Healy, for that information. I would just like also to point out that there are existing porches right now on the east and west side. On the west side, we're just lining up that porch with the addition that was put on in 2002. So making a nice clean line across the front of the house. You can see that in the drawing. I think it improves the look of the house, and it does bring that porch out about 1.5 feet from what it was prior. And the porch on the east side is connecting two porches, one wonderful 1820 porch and a stoop that was put on with the addition, and so we're just connecting all of that, so we'll make one nice clean line across the east side of the house. The original part of the house is about 1725, so it is older. The middle portion of the house is about 1816, and there was an addition put on in 2002, and then in 2007, the 6-acre lot was turned into a 1-acre lot when the 5 acres were dedicated to the preservation that went with the rest of Sidam Farms.
The actual property is just that the lot line has.
Right, right.
Yes.
And the lot is owned by our family limited partnership, Sidam Associates, and all the contingent lots are Sidam Associates as well. It's all the farm.
And of course, that's the best and the most appropriate design for the porches for this particular house.
Yes.
And there's certainly no neighbors that it has any impact.
Correct.
How it could have any potential. Yeah, but I guess you don't count. I don't know, does anybody need more information? Do we need anything legally to tie
Mr.
this
Chairman,
up?
as part of the record, it is comment number 2 in the TRC report, I think outlines all of the justifications for the variance. The porches would not extend any closer to the road than the existing house. It's largely triggered by the rezoning. The architectural plans demonstrate that the proposed porches would blend well with the character of the existing home. There would be no substantial detriment to surrounding property since the porches would be set back in excess of 55 feet, would be screened by intervening vegetation, would blend in well with the character of the home, and since surrounding properties contain no nearby residences, lastly, it is understood that surrounding properties are under the same or similar ownership as the subject property.
Sounds like it takes care of everything. Now, can we have a motion?
You have to go to the public?
Yes.
Do
Okay,
you have anything to say?
may have a better chance here than at home, right? Okay, we'll close to the public. Oh, yes.
I move that we grant the variance on ZBA 18-00020, as stated in.
Yes, can't hear you here.
Oh, I propose we grant the hardship variance for ZBA 18-00020, as stated in the documents.
Yes, we need a second.
Second.
Okay, poll the board.
Anthony Caldwell,
Yes.
Laura Grauman, Donald Johnson,
Yes.
Bruce McCracken,
Yes.
Alan Rich,
Yes.
Gary Rosenthal,
Yes.
and Chairman Thomas.
Yes, and again, good luck with it.
Thank you, neighbors, very much.
If there are no objections, then we will adjourn the meeting. Meeting adjourned.